Bristol is commonly known around the state of Connecticut as having one of the best educational systems. If you need proof, think about this. He's called the heartbeat of Bristol Central High School. Pete Wininger, who likes to go by Pete, won the National Principal of the Year award last year. But you'd only hear that from others, not him.
So, Pete, the last time we were here, it was such an honor for you to be named National Principal of the Year. This year must have had some highs and lows. Tell us a little bit about what 2017 and 2018 were for you in Central.
Well, certainly 2017-18 doesn't recognize the fact that that happened last year. Life goes on and you keep moving forward. So every school year is filled with highs and lows, some more than others. You can always expect that the beginning of the school year is going to be pretty exciting with kids getting ready to come back and seeing all their friends and seeing their teachers. And of course we have a really cool program where we mentor our freshman students with seniors. We call them Rambassadors. And it's always nice to see them formulate those relationships initially in the first few months. It's a pretty exciting time for everyone, and then as the school year gets started, we have a number of activities throughout the year that continues to promote our community feel here and our family atmosphere. And Thanksgiving we do a family dinner prior to the break, and before the winter break we do a pretty cool thing called Festivus. I'm sure most people have heard about it. And it really is a week's worth of events leading up to the Festivus celebration. And that really rolls us into the winter doldrums, unfortunately. And the winter is usually a long period of time. It's broken up by the mid-year exams, and then we have the winter weekend in February. But this winter in particular was extremely long. Spring didn't want to arrive, and I think there were a few national events that kind of raised the anxiety level of kids, speaking specifically of Parkland, Florida. Certainly when an event like that takes place, it reverberates through our staff and students, and it certainly raises their concerns about how we do things, and we just try to reassure them that we are our own best defense. We got to take care of one another and continue to promote that family atmosphere so that everybody gets along.
I think your mentoring program is amazing because you got over 1,100 students here. If I was coming from a middle school, I would be probably scared to death. So that's really, how do you select those seniors, and how does that program kind of work? Because I think that's terrific.
So we've had a couple of teachers who have dedicated themselves to making that program what it is. And they go through a pretty intense training in the summer underneath that teacher, Mrs. McCabe. And it really opens their eyes up as to how you can best work with a young person to acclimate them to the high school. And certainly they've had their own experiences in high school that they can share. But there is an application process, there's an interview process, and again, with that training, we prepare them to work with kids throughout the school year during their advisory period to not just provide them with some answers, but to really to develop a relationship with them and help pass on what our expectations are for freshmen coming into this building, both academically, socially, and behaviorally. And it's been pretty successful for us here.
Every year, new students, probably some new teachers. What were your kind of goals and expectations coming into this year?
So this year was unique in the fact that we lost 5 teachers to budget cuts over the calendar year. So coming into the same building with the same number of students and trying to manage that group with larger class sizes, with fewer teachers to man study halls and duties, our concern was really, can we still manage the same crowd with a lower number of people within our existing schedule? And that's been a challenge for us, and it's caused people to have to work differently in some situations to make sure that students are getting what they need when they need it.
Let's go back to the award.
Sure.
It was such an outstanding award for not only you, Central, and Bristol, because there are so many fantastic educators across the country. Why do you think you won?
Well, when I was in Florida and at the award ceremony, I met some incredible people. And there were more awards than just the principal award. There was awards for teachers and coaches, and it was really inspiring. And at any given time, one of those people could have been an award winner for sure. And they each brought something really unique to their own school community. When I think about receiving that honor, I truly believe it's a reflection of the people in this building. You can't operate a school of this size without having a group of people who are all on board with the same expectations and working on the same mission. And for me, when I think about that in this school community, you're not going to find a more caring and compassionate group of people who are really here to make sure that kids have the best experience they can. And that, again, is it's our focus. You know, we want to make sure that kids in these hallways feel cared for, and they feel like if they had an issue, they could go to anybody, whether it be a secretary, custodian, paraprofessional, teacher, administrator. At any given time, you can walk these hallways, and you'll see that interaction between student and adult, and it's unique, and it's special, and certainly that's what drives us here.
Kind of an exciting time because the seniors are ready to move on. The juniors can't wait to be seniors. But your job really is kind of 12 months, isn't it? So what does and I shouldn't say this because I know a little bit because my father was a principal, but what do you do during the summer, to get ready and what's your life like during the summer?
So the summer isn't here yet. Obviously, we need to survive the last few weeks of school. Right. We got to get through our proms, our awards night, and certainly graduation, which is the culmination of everything that we do here. And it truly is a special event. After that, you pick yourself up off the carpet.
Take a breather.
Take a breather for a couple days, and then the real work begins on the technical things. And most of that is the office work, which isn't my favorite thing to do in the summer,
sure.
Or any day for that matter. But I prefer interacting with kids. That work is grounded in our professional development for teachers, working on improving our school accountability index, which is our rating by the state of Connecticut, and targeting those individual things that make us better. And within those things, there's curriculum work to do, there's planning work to do, there's goals to set. It's the things that you don't get the time to do during the regular school year because you're working, the whole time with students and teachers. It's time for the administration to sit down and really set up a specific plan for success for the following year.
You've been here several years. What do you think the biggest change was in your first year to where you are now?
The biggest change in my first year from where I am now, besides the amount of gray hair that I have.
But you still have it. That's the good thing.
Yes, I do still have it. I don't know that there's been one significant change. Mm-hmm. I think there's been a gradual change in the type of student that we have at Bristol Central and the type of student we need to serve now. Certainly the level of poverty in the city has grown a little bit, so we're seeing students with different needs. I think with the changing demographic in the town, we certainly have a different set of needs within the school that go beyond classroom. We have needs for mental health services. We have needs for medical services, dental services, things like that could really help our students through their high school experience. We could really use those things. And again, the city itself has undergone quite a change over the past few years. So those needs are now appearing, and the more that we can provide kids with those services, I think the better off they're going to be and more successful we'll be here at the high school.
Across town, a new principal was just starting her tenure as high school principal. Marisa Calvi-Rogers left Central and took over the leadership at Bristol Eastern High School.
Marisa, is this you can exhale because you've gone through 1 year, or did it just go by too fast since this is your first year at Eastern?
It went by in a blink. It really did. It went by very quickly.
What did you expect coming in? I mean, did you have any expectations or goals?
I always had goals. Expectations, I think coming in now, I was at Bristol Central for 4 years, so I was familiar with the district. I was familiar with really the vision of our Office of Teaching and Learning and all of that. But, it was a different high school. Central and Eastern are two very different high schools. So coming in, it was really, what's this high school all about? Because you have to be out there. You have to be visible. Like, I have an open door policy. My door is always open. I have kids and staff who walk in all the time that have questions, comments, ideas. So being available, being out in the cafeteria when I can, being in the halls and the classrooms when I can, being at events as much as I can. And I think the more accessible you are, the more people are willing to have a conversation. And then when people have a conversation, it's how can I support what they're trying to accomplish? And for me, really my biggest vision coming in here, and I introduced that concept at our very first faculty meeting together, is understanding the individual story. We all have our own stories, all of us. And if we understand that about each other, it makes a big difference about how we treat each other. And even for our students, not all students learn the same way.
Right.
And every student comes in with a story, and understanding, what makes that kid tick, meeting their needs. That's the most important thing. That to me is the secret. The secret to success in education is if we take the time to understand each person's story and then work with that information.
I grew up in a teaching family. My father was my elementary school principal and then went on to be superintendent of schools. It's very common for a teacher to teach and then go into the commercial world. You kind of did it the other way around. How has being in the commercial world helped you in now being a teacher and an administrator?
Well, so I spent about 15 years in the business world, and I climbed the corporate ladder, and I was an executive in that field. So I had quite a bit of management experience. So how a business should run, how to manage a budget, how to motivate. All of those things were things that was a lot of my life. And coming into this job, I think that helped quite a bit, because management is still management. Whether you're in a school, whether you're in the private sector, you're working with people, and you have to understand, how to get things done.
Any job you come into, you kind of have an expectation and you think it's going to go that way. What is something that's happened this year that's kind of been unexpected for you?
There wasn't too much that I didn't expect. I think, one thing I always struggle with is, the kids and their attendance sometimes, like, just come to school on time. My joke to the kids is, if this were a job, I'd have to fire you. So I can't say I didn't expect it, but I'd like to see a much better improvement on that. Like, I want the kids to want to be here on time. So that's something that, but that's not something, that happens all over the place. It's not something so unique here. I think on a positive is just seeing how much teachers do with very little resources. That's, you see that and you're just wowed by that all the time. And just the sheer commitment. There are a lot of teachers who put in so many hours. They're not paid for that. They just believe in the kids and their, and the causes to support or the community outreach. And to just see that sheer dedication. But again, that doesn't surprise me, but it's so nice to see.
Right. I think there's a lot of things that people have preconceived knowledge about kids that are in high school, and they don't get credit for all the good stuff. What are some of the things that you see that maybe amaze you or people should know about these kids?
Well, first of all, the kids are awesome. And I think a lot of times when I tell someone, I work in Bristol, there's a preconceived notion. What does that mean?
Right.
And our demographics in the town have definitely changed. We're much more diverse, but I see that diversity as a positive, so that the kids, when they leave Bristol and they go on to the next phases of their life, they have had the experience of understanding different people, different cultures. And I think that sometimes, people who don't know education or have been in a high school setting, there's an assumption about those tough kids, and that may be like this tiny little percent. But the bulk of the kids here are incredibly talented. If you look at just the arts program, the music programs, they're award winning. This past weekend, it was all shook up and it was fantastic. Just the sheer talent of the kids. We have different programs where like our Friends of Rachel group and all the money they raise for Relay, or our BE and Beyond, where the kids go out into the community to give back, or they work with the elementary school or middle school kids and different things. These are great kids that are so committed to making their community a better place, making their school a better place, and they're not just trying to build a resume. It's because they're passionate about things. And of course, you have the staff that is there willing to give the kids that opportunity. A group of kids was just in DC having a great experience. Teachers are willing to bring them to all these different places. So what people have to know is that the future is bright. Our kids are great. And for some of the kids that struggle a bit, it's just because their story is a little bit more complex. And we still have to work a little harder to make that connection for them.
So we're almost out of school, but it doesn't really stop for you. What will your tasks be getting ready for next year over the summer?
A lot of it is to really to recharge, but then the summer is really where we take the time to look back and reflect on the year, see what things went well, see what things we need to look at procedurally. Safety, of course, is always number one. We look at our handbooks that we give, kind of our rules of engagement with our kids and our staff, and what are things there that need to be looked at. We plan for professional development that's meaningful, that helps teachers be better equipped to understand the individual stories. And it's also kind of a time to connect with other colleagues within the district too, and have an opportunity to talk about, brainstorm different ideas. So you get to do it at a slower pace, but you get to do all of that work that helps you prepare for the next school year. So we hit the ground running again.
For more information on Bristol's education system, go to www.bristol.k12.ct.us/Board of Ed.